The air was thick with dust and anticipation, the kind that clings to your skin and whispers secrets of a world long gone. In early 2025, beneath the sun-scorched hills of southeastern Turkey, a team of archaeologists stood frozen, their breaths caught in their throats. They had just pried open a sealed stone chamber beneath Göbekli Tepe, a place already steeped in mystery, its towering T-shaped pillars, etched with animals, and symbols older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge. But what they found inside this hidden vault wasn't just another relic of a forgotten age. It was something that would unravel everything we thought we knew about the dawn of human civilization. A limestone slab, smooth and deliberate, lay at the chamber's heart, its surface crawling with carvings, unlike anything seen before. They called it the Stone Codex, a name that barely captured the weight of its existence. This wasn't just a slab of rock. It was a message, a time capsule sealed with purpose over 11,000 years ago, as if its creators knew someone, someday, would find it. The symbols etched into its surface weren't random scratches. They were deliberate, arranged in sequences that hinted at a language, a calendar, maybe even a map of the stars. And as the researchers brushed away the millennia of dirt, they realized they were staring at the oldest known example of symbolic language in human history, predating anything we thought possible by more than 6,000 years. The discovery sent shockwaves through the team, their whispers echoing off the chamber's walls. Göbekli Tepe was already a riddle wrapped in stone. For decades, its massive pillars, some towering 18 feet high and weighing 10 tons, had baffled archaeologists. How could a people we called hunter-gatherers, supposedly primitive, have carved and raised such monuments? How could they have organized, planned, and executed something so grand without cities, without writing, without the tools we thought necessary? But this chamber, buried with care beneath the earth, was no accident. It was sealed airtight, capped with heavy stone slabs, as if its creators wanted to protect something sacred, something too precious to be lost to time. The air inside was stale but pristine, untouched for millennia, a vault from the Stone Age that whispered of foresight and intention. The team's lead archaeologist, a weathered Turkish scholar, with eyes that gleamed with equal parts awe and disbelief, knelt beside the codex. His fingers traced the carvings, spirals, crescents, and strange, repeating patterns that seemed to pulse with meaning. "This isn't just a find," he murmured to his colleague, a young German researcher who'd spent years mapping the site's pillars. "This is a library, a message from people who knew something we've forgotten." The chamber itself was small, just 4 meters by 4, but it felt vast, like stepping into a cathedral of time. 2 T-shaped pillars stood like silent sentinels, facing each other across the codex slab. They were cousins to the pillars above ground, but these were different, covered in symbols that didn't match the familiar carvings of snakes, foxes, and scorpions found elsewhere at the site. These were intricate, almost mathematical, arranged in rows and grids that suggested a system, a code. Some symbols were crescent-shaped, others circular, and a few looked like nothing less than a binary pattern, alternating shapes in a rhythm too precise to be random. The researchers' flashlights danced across the stone, illuminating a row of 13 crescent carvings along the top edge, mirrored by 13 circular depressions below. "A lunar calendar," one archaeologist whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of the realization. 13 lunar months in a solar year. And in the center, a larger circular symbol, flanked by 11 V-shaped marks, seemed to mark the sun, and the exact 11-day difference between a lunar year and a solar one. This wasn't just art. This was precision, a calendar carved in stone with an accuracy that rivaled anything from the ancient Greeks or Egyptians, crafted by people we'd dismissed as nomads, chasing game across the plains. What made the discovery even more haunting was the why. Why bury this chamber? Why seal it so carefully, backfilling it with earth and capping it with slabs so heavy it took modern machinery to lift them? The team found traces of what seemed to be an early waterproofing agent, resins and clays, smeared along the chamber's walls as if the builders had gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure its contents would survive. This wasn't abandonment. It was preservation, a deliberate act by people who understood time in a way we're only beginning to grasp. A new theory began to take shape among the researchers, one that sent chills down their spines. What if this chamber was built to outlast a catastrophe? The timing was uncanny. The chamber dated to around 9,500 BCE, the tail end of the Younger Dryas, a period of sudden, brutal climate change that some believe was triggered by a cosmic impact, a comet or asteroid slamming into Earth, reshaping the world in fire and ice. Could these people, these so-called primitives, have known something was coming? Could they have built this vault to preserve knowledge for a future they wouldn't live to see? The idea felt like something out of a myth, yet the evidence was right there, carved in stone. As the team worked late into the night, their lanterns casting long shadows across the chamber, they began to notice something even stranger about the codex. The carvings weren't just a calendar. They seemed to follow mathematical patterns. A series of tick marks and spacings aligned with the golden ratio, that 1.618 constant that weaves through nature, from seashells to galaxies, and later found in the pyramids of Egypt. Another section hinted at pi, 3.14, a number that shouldn't have been known for thousands of years. And then, there was the number of carvings themselves. Exactly 137. The number hit the researchers like a thunderbolt. In modern physics, 137 is the fine structure constant, a fundamental number that governs how light and matter interact, a mystery that baffled even Einstein. In ancient traditions, from Kabbalah to esoteric numerology, 137 carried sacred weight, a number tied to the fabric of reality itself. How could people 12,000 years ago have known this? How could they have carved it into stone with such precision? The young German researcher, her hands trembling as she sketched the symbols, whispered, "This isn't possible. It's like they were speaking to us across time." The chamber's walls held more secrets. A fractal-like pattern, repeating in recursive loops, was carved into one corner, its design eerily similar to modern theories of the holographic universe, a concept suggesting reality itself is a projection, encoded at its smallest scales. Another carving, a spiral with a double eye motif, echoed symbols found halfway across the world, in places like the Indus Valley, Mesoamerica, even Easter Island. These weren't exact matches, but the similarities were too striking to dismiss. Could Göbekli Tepe be more than a temple? Could it be a crossroads, a hub of knowledge shared across continents by a civilization we've forgotten? The team's linguist, a quiet woman with a knack for patterns, began to suspect the codex wasn't just a calendar or a code. It might be a story, a record of something vast and cataclysmic meant to guide those who came after. But who were these people, and what were they trying to say? The whispers of the past grew louder as the archaeologists lingered in the sealed chamber, their eyes fixed on the stone codex, its carvings glowing faintly under the flicker of their lanterns. The air felt heavy, not just with the weight of 11,000 years, but with the sense that they were on the cusp of something far greater than a mere discovery. This wasn't just a slab of limestone. It was a bridge to a lost world, a world where people we'd called primitive had woven knowledge so intricate it seemed to defy time itself. The team's linguist, her notebook filled with sketches of the strange symbols, couldn't shake the feeling that the codex was trying to speak, not just as a calendar or a code, but as a story etched in stone, a warning, or a guide left by those who'd seen the world change in ways we could scarcely imagine. As the days turned into weeks, the chamber began to reveal more of its secrets, each one more astonishing than the last, pulling the researchers deeper into a mystery that stretched across continents, millennia, and even the stars above. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the hills of Göbekli Tepe in shades of gold and shadow, the team gathered around a laptop, its screen displaying a 3D scan of the chamber. The German researcher, his face etched with exhaustion and excitement, pointed to the results of a LiDAR analysis. The chamber wasn't just a vault. It was a masterpiece of design, its walls and pillars crafted to resonate at specific frequencies, 110 Hz and 432 Hz, sounds that modern science knows can shift the human mind into meditative, almost trance-like states. The team's acoustic expert, a wiry man with a passion for ancient music, set up a small speaker and played a low hum at 110 Hz. The sound filled the chamber, vibrating through the stone and into their bones, a sensation that made their hearts race and their thoughts blur. This wasn't just a place to store knowledge, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. This was a place to feel it, to connect with something bigger. The idea was staggering. The builders of Göbekli Tepe hadn't just understood architecture or astronomy. They'd known how sound could shape the human soul, crafting a space where rituals or chants might have carried people into realms of consciousness we're only beginning to rediscover. The codex itself held even more surprises. As the linguist and a mathematician from the team worked side by side, they noticed patterns that went beyond the lunar calendar. The symbols, arranged in precise rows, seemed to follow a binary-like structure, alternating shapes in a rhythm that suggested a base 2 or base 4 system, a kind of proto-digital code. The mathematician, a woman with a sharp mind and a knack for seeing order in chaos, ran calculations late into the night. Her findings were breathtaking. The patterns could be used to track not just lunar cycles, but seasonal shifts and even the precession of the stars, a slow wobble in Earth's axis that takes 26,000 years to complete. How could a people without telescopes or computers have known this? The linguist, her eyes red from sleepless nights, began to suspect the codex was more than a record. It might be a tool, a way to predict the movements of the heavens, perhaps to prepare for events like the cosmic impact some believed had triggered the Younger Dryas. The idea felt like a whisper from the edge of possibility. What if these people hadn't just survived a catastrophe, but had foreseen it, encoding their knowledge in stone to help others do the same? The chamber's carvings hinted at connections far beyond Turkey's hills. One symbol, a spiral with a double eye motif, appeared again and again, its design hauntingly similar to patterns found in the Indus Valley on Easter Island, even in the ancient cities of Mesoamerica. These cultures were separated by oceans and thousands of years, yet the resemblance was undeniable. The team's historian, a soft-spoken man with a love for forgotten stories, began to wonder if Göbekli Tepe was a kind of anchor, a place where knowledge was gathered and shared by a civilization we've lost to time. He pointed to another carving, a top-down view of the site's enclosures that looked eerily like a star chart, its lines mirroring the constellation Cygnus, the Northern Cross. Cygnus held a special place in ancient myths, a cosmic bridge to the underworld or the womb of creation. At its heart lies the Cygnus Rift, a dark lane in the Milky Way, and Cygnus X1, the first black hole ever discovered. Could the builders have known something about the cosmos that we're only now grasping? The historian's voice trembled as he spoke. This isn't just a temple, it's a map of reality itself. The mystery deepened when the team uncovered a small, buried fragment near the codex. A tooth, its surface worn but intact. Initial DNA tests sent the researchers reeling. It didn't belong to a modern human, but to a lineage closer to Denisovans. a shadowy branch of our ancient kin, known for their resilience and, some believe, their advanced cognition. The Turkish archaeologist, his hands steady but his heart racing, held the tooth under the lantern's glow. "What if they weren't just hunter-gatherers?" he asked. "What if they were something more? Hybrids, perhaps, carrying knowledge we can't even fathom?" The idea was controversial, almost heretical, yet it fit the puzzle. The precision of the codex, the acoustic design of the chamber, the astronomical alignments, all pointed to a people with capabilities far beyond what we'd imagined. Could Göbekli Tepe have been built by a forgotten branch of humanity, one that walked the line between us and something else, leaving behind a legacy carved in stone? But the greatest enigma was the site itself. Only 5% of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated, a fraction of its sprawling network of enclosures and pillars. Ground-penetrating radar revealed dozens more structures buried beneath the soil, their shapes tantalizingly similar to the chamber they'd just uncovered. Yet the pace of excavation had slowed to a crawl. In 2017, a shift in management had changed the site's trajectory, turning it into a tourist draw while halting much of the digging. The team's youngest member, a fiery graduate student with a knack for asking hard questions, couldn't hide her frustration. "Why stop now?" she demanded one night, her voice echoing in the camp. "This could rewrite history, and they're stalling." Why? Some whispered of economic motives, keeping the site mysterious to draw visitors. Others suspected something deeper, a reluctance to uncover truths that might challenge our understanding of the past. The Turkish archaeologist, his face lined with years of dust and discovery, offered a quiet warning. "Some knowledge is buried for a reason. Maybe we're not ready for what's down there." As the team continued their work, the codex's astronomical alignments grew even more astonishing. Computer simulations, guided by Dr. Martin Sweatman's research, showed the chamber's pillars weren't just aligned with the sky of 9,500 BCE, but with a far older celestial map, possibly 36,400 BCE, a time when the stars of Cygnus would have burned brighter in the night sky. The implications were staggering. Either the builders had preserved knowledge from a civilization far older than we'd dreamed, or the site itself was built on something ancient, a foundation laid by hands we'll never know. One carving, a faint outline of 3 circles, bore an uncanny resemblance to the layout of the Giza pyramids, their angles matching Earth's axial tilt of 23.5 degrees. The historian, his voice barely audible, murmured, "This isn't just a site. It's part of something bigger, a network maybe, stretching across the Earth." The chamber's fractal carving haunted the team most of all. Its recursive pattern, repeating at smaller and smaller scales, felt like a glimpse into the holographic theories of modern physics, where the universe is encoded in its smallest parts. The mathematician, her eyes bright with wonder, traced the design with her finger. "It's like they understood the fabric of reality," she said. "Not with equations, but with intuition, with symbols." The linguist nodded, her notebook now filled with translations that hinted at a creation story, a tale of stars, floods, and a people who'd seen the world reborn. The codex wasn't just a message. It was a legacy, a testament to a people who'd faced the end of one world and built a bridge to the next. And as the team stood in the chamber, surrounded by the hum of 11,000 years, they couldn't shake the feeling that the story was far from over. The stars above Göbekli Tepe burned bright that final night, as if mirroring the fire in the archaeologists' hearts. They stood outside the chamber, the stone codex now carefully catalogued, but still whispering its secrets. The Turkish archaeologist, his face weathered by decades of digging through time, gazed at the sky where Cygnus hung like a silent sentinel. The discovery of the chamber and its codex had changed everything, not just for the team, but for the story of humanity itself. It was no longer enough to call Göbekli Tepe a temple or a gathering place. It was a vault of wisdom, a testament to a people who'd looked at the heavens and seen truths we're only now beginning to grasp. But with every answer the Codex gave, it raised a dozen more questions, each one tugging at the edges of what we thought possible. Who were these people, really? Why had they buried their knowledge so carefully? And why, after all this time, did it feel like the world wasn't ready to hear their story? The team's linguist, her notebook now a maze of symbols and half-formed translations, sat by the campfire, her eyes tracing the Codex's patterns in her mind. She'd spent days cross-referencing the carvings with later writing systems, and one symbol, a sharp, angular mark resembling the Sumerian sign for An, meaning heaven or God, kept pulling her back. It was too close to be coincidence. A thread linking Göbekli Tepe to the Mesopotamian cradle of civilization, thousands of years later. Could this site, buried long before Sumer's cities rose, be the root of their myths, their gods, their writing? The thought was dizzying. The historian, nursing a cup of tea, joined her, his voice soft but heavy with wonder. "If this is true," he said, "then Göbekli isn't just a site. It's the origin of something vast, a spark that spread across the world, carried by people we'll never know." The linguist nodded, her fingers brushing the page where she'd sketched the spiral and double-eye motifs, so similar to those found in far-off lands. It was as if the Codex was a seed, planted in stone, its roots stretching to places as distant as Easter Island and the Indus Valley, whispering of a shared story we'd forgotten. The mathematician, meanwhile, couldn't let go of the number 137. That single sacred count of carvings on the Codex haunted her dreams. She'd run the numbers again and again, confirming the patterns, the golden ratio, pi, the binary-like code that seemed to pulse with purpose. But 137 was the key, a number that modern physicists like Feynman had called a mystery, a constant woven into the fabric of light and matter. How could it appear here, in Göbekli Tepe script part 3. Text in a place, built by people who weren't supposed to know such things? She shared her thoughts with the acoustic expert, who'd been mapping the chamber's resonances. He pointed out that the 110 Hz frequency, humming through the stone, wasn't just a sound. It was a vibration that mirrored patterns in nature, from brainwaves to the orbits of planets. They weren't just building, he said, his eyes alight with the thrill of discovery. They were tuning this place to the universe itself. The idea felt like a revelation, as if the chamber was a kind of cosmic instrument, designed to connect those who entered it to something greater, perhaps to the stars, perhaps to the divine. But the stars held their own mysteries. Dr. Martin Sweatman's simulations, now refined with data from the chamber, showed alignments that stretched back, not just to 9,500 BCE, but to 36,400 BCE, a date so ancient it seemed impossible. The pillars, the codex, even the layout of the enclosures seemed to map a sky from a time when humanity was barely emerging from the Ice Age. The graduate student, her frustration with the stalled excavations now tempered by awe, wondered aloud if Göbekli Tepe was built on something older, a foundation laid by a civilization we've erased from history. She pointed to the carving that looked like a star chart, its lines echoing the Giza Pyramid's alignment with Orion's belt. "What if this is a map?" she asked. "Not just of the sky, but of the Earth. A network of places like this built to mark something we've lost?" The historian nodded, his mind racing to the geodetic link. The 23.5-degree angle between Göbekli's enclosures, matching Earth's axial tilt. It was too precise, too deliberate. Could this site, and others like it, be part of a global system, a grid of knowledge laid out across the planet by a people who understood the world in ways we're only beginning to rediscover. The tooth found near the codex added another layer of mystery. The DNA results, still preliminary, suggested a lineage not quite human, perhaps Denisovan or a hybrid we've yet to fully understand. The Turkish archaeologist, holding the tooth in his palm, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. They were different, he said quietly, not just in their knowledge but in who they were. The idea that Göbekli Tepe might have been built by a forgotten branch of humanity, one with insights we can't yet fathom, sent ripples through the team. It wasn't just about rewriting history books. It was about rethinking what it means to be human. The codex, with its fractal patterns and astronomical precision, seemed to carry their legacy, a message that survived floods, wars, and the slow grind of time. But why hide it? Why bury it so carefully, as if to shield it from catastrophe, or from us? The question of the burial lingered like a shadow. The chamber's careful ceiling, its waterproofed walls, its heavy stone caps, all pointed to a purpose beyond mere preservation. The team began to see Göbekli Tepe not as a single act of creation, but as a response to something cataclysmic. The younger Dryas, with its sudden freeze and tales of global floods, loomed large in their minds. The animal carvings on the pillars above ground, snakes, birds, scorpions, echoed stories of survival, of a world reborn after chaos. The historian, his voice thick with emotion, drew a connection to the biblical flood, to Noah's Ark, said to have rested not far from here, on Mount Ararat. What if this is their ark? He asked. Not a boat, but a vault, built to carry their knowledge through the end of the world, the linguist. Her eyes, tracing the codex's symbols, saw parallels to flood myths from Sumer, Egypt, even the Americas. It was as if Göbekli Tepe held the seed of those stories, a memory of a time when the skies fell and the earth changed. Yet the greatest mystery wasn't what had been found, but what still lay buried. With 95% of the site untouched, the ground-penetrating radar humming with the promise of more chambers, more codices, the team felt the weight of the unknown. The graduate student, her voice fierce with determination, argued for faster excavations, for answers to the questions piling up like the stones around them. But the Turkish archaeologist, his gaze fixed on the horizon, offered a caution. Some things are buried for a reason, he said. Maybe they wanted us to find this now when we're ready, or maybe we're still not. The slowdown in excavations, tied to new management and whispers of controlled narratives, hung over the camp like a storm cloud. Was it economics, as some claimed, keeping the site a tourist draw? Or was it something deeper, a reluctance to face truths that might unravel our understanding of the past? As the team packed up their tools, the codex carefully crated for study, they couldn't shake the feeling that they'd only scratched the surface. The carvings, the chamber, the alignments, they were pieces of a puzzle that spanned the globe, from the pyramids of Giza to the statues of Easter Island. The linguist closed her notebook, the spiral symbol etched on its cover, and whispered, "They wanted us to find this. They wanted us to remember." The mathematician, her mind still racing with the number 137, looked to the stars and wondered if the answers were up there, in the light of Cygnus, or the shadow of a black hole. And the historian, his heart heavy with the weight of history, left the site with a single thought. Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a place. It was a call, a challenge to rethink who we are, where we came from, and what we might yet become. The Codex, sealed for 11,000 years, had spoken. Now it was up to us to listen,